Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. I'm Jim.
And I'm Lynn.
Bringing you uncommon solutions for common problems. Our goal is to give you the knowledge and tools you need to let go of limiting beliefs and tap the power of your mind.
Guess what I was doing last night?
You were Googling again, weren't you? And haven't I been telling you to get more sleep?
I know it, but I was so excited about our show today, and I knew we were going to be talking about diabetes. So I wanted to learn a little more about it. And, you know, we hear all the time about the dramatic rise of diabetes in the United States, even among children, and the increase in obesity. But it doesn't really hit home until you see it put into perspective, and that's what I was doing last night. Diabetes affects 25.8 million people of all ages. That's 8.3% of the entire U.S. population. And the diagnosed people are 18.8 million. So that means there are 7 million people out there yet to be diagnosed. And the human toll is staggering. Diabetes is the leading cause of kidney failure, non-traumatic lower limb amputations, and new cases of blindness among adults in the United States. And it's also the major cause of heart disease and stroke, and the 7th leading cause of death in the U.S.
And diabetes is an enormous cost to the U.S. economy, $174 billion a year. And this statistic is from 2007. Imagine what it must be today, 5 years later. The medical expenses for people with diabetes is more than 2 times higher than that of people without diabetes.
Well, obviously, it can be a really devastating illness. And we know that hypnosis can help in so many ways. So our guest today, we invited partly because he is a type 2 diabetic himself. He tested his own techniques and was successful at changing his own eating and exercise habits, lost over 40 pounds of weight, and his sugars went from 400 to normal ranges with considerably less oral medication. He's a living example of how hypnosis can really benefit a diabetic, helping them to live longer, healthier, more fulfilling lives.
Devin Hastings is our guest today. Devin has over 27 years of experience. He has received numerous awards, most notably the coveted Ormond McGill Chair Award, evidence of great respect by other esteemed members of the National Guild of Hypnotists, the world's largest hypnosis organization. He's the president of Mind Body Hypnosis and the Minnesota Institute of Advanced Communication Skills.
As a type 2 diabetic, Devin used his skills and experience to pioneer new techniques for management for diabetes. He's the author of Control Your Diabetes with Hypnosis and New Answers for Diabetes. His unique approach was published in Diabetes Interview, a leading diabetes journal. He's been featured on WESH TV Channel 2 News Orlando and host of the Hypnosis Hotline on 7740 WINCAM News Radio.
Devin is a fellow of the Association for Professional Hypnotists and a neurolinguist and a hospital-certified hypnotherapist. Devin, welcome to the show. We're glad you could join us today.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Just
we
can't
really
wait.
appreciate.
Yeah, sorry.
We just really appreciate having you here today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So, Devin, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about what diabetes actually is and who can get it?
Diabetes, I mean, everybody thinks they know what it is. It's like a touch of the sugar, or, you know, you have too much sugar or not enough insulin, and so everybody has some idea of what it is, but it's basically the body's inability to use existing levels of insulin, or the body is not producing enough insulin. And oftentimes the lines are a bit blurred, which is why I tell people one of the things in order to be able to better manage the diabetes is to learn more about it. When I was diagnosed with diabetes, other bad things in my life were happening. I was almost completely blind at the time. And one of the things that helped me to get out of a deep depression was learning more about it. So, and by the way, anybody can get diabetes. It is a massive epidemic. 1 in 3 kids are predicted to have it in the United States by 2020. Every 7 seconds worldwide, somebody is dying from diabetes.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody can get it. And we have to start paying attention and using other methods to control it now.
How and why did you decide to use hypnosis for diabetes?
I was desperate, actually. When I was diagnosed, my blood sugars, as you mentioned, were 400 milligrams per deciliter. That was my fasting blood sugar. And I'll give you just a quick primer on that. Fasting blood sugar is when, depending on the lab, you go 8 to 12 hours without eating or drinking. They then draw your blood sugar, and it is supposed to be, on average, 100. And mine was 400. So what that means is during the day, before I knew that I was diabetic, I would eat stuff, and my sugar would shoot probably twice that level. I mean, I was experiencing an unbelievable lethargy. So when I was diagnosed, I was almost completely blind. And it wasn't at first that I decided to use hypnosis for diabetes, but I'd been doing hypnosis since '82. And I thought, well, I'm a researcher, I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff. And I thought, well, it can help people with all these other things. So why not see what it can do? And I did the research, too. So a long story, but I'll keep it pretty short. I just thought it can't hurt. And that's my main message. It can only help.
That makes sense.
Why don't you explain for our listeners a little bit about what hypnosis is and how it really works? I've heard it can be really harmful if those stage shows are to be believed. That's what people think.
Yeah, the stage shows, I get people who come into my office, and they're all kind of nervous and jittery. And so and then of course what I do is when they're not expecting it, I go boo, and then they really jump out of their seat.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, you got to have fun. Laughter the best medicine. I run a school here too, and when I teach, my students, one of the most memorable things is, all the laughing gas that I pat. No, I'm kidding. We don't actually do that. But we have a great time. And I like to do that with clients, too. Stage shows, and for anybody who doesn't know this, stage shows operate on one principle, and it is very complex, but I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. It is the cooperation principle. Yeah, I know, really in-depth, huh? But, I had a client come in the other day. She said, I want to be hypnotized so people don't manipulate me as much. And I looked at her and I said, and you've come to a hypnotist for that?
Right. She's asking you to manipulate her.
Yeah, the funniest things at the funniest times.
I know.
So the stage shows, they work on the cooperation principle. The stage hypnotist says, can I have volunteers, please? Okay, that's clue number one. If a stage hypnotist could make people do what people think the stage hypnotist can, all that person would have to do is stand on stage and literally point at people, and they would just come up, even if they didn't want to. So then the stage hypnotist, progressively filters out the people who are cooperating and the people who aren't. So stage shows, first of all, the image is not exactly true. So let's get that one out of the way first. People have to volunteer, and even then they can refuse to be hypnotized, and many do. Many others have a great time. So, and stage shows are fun. Basically, you've got a choreographer who has funny skits and gets people to act them out. That's all it is.
Right.
So, with that in mind, the question then is, well, what is hypnosis? And then, of course, the obvious question is, does it, in quotes, work? I've been at this over 27 years. I've written 4 books on the subject. I've traveled internationally, spoken to a lot of people. There are so many definitions of hypnosis out there, and I like things simple. My definition, hello, that's easy for me to say, isn't it? My definition of hypnosis is this. It's twofold. Number one, hypnosis is your ability to convince yourself of anything.
Okay.
Anything. This, therefore, leads to the second part of the definition. This means that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And a hypnotist is a coach who helps you to go into trance. We guide a person into trance, and then we help a person to convince themselves of ideas that are good for them And we help people to unconvince or unhypnotize themselves from ideas that are bad for them.
Exactly.
Pretty simple,
People
huh?
don't realize there's also
Very
negative
true.
hypnosis, and we need to change that, break that pattern.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing of it is, we can't hypnotize people into doing things they don't want to. Our job, and you know, this is from my perspective, our job is to unhypnotize people first from limiting ideas and beliefs that can cause pain and dysfunction. Then, I'm sorry?
I was just agreeing with you, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, and once people see the demystification of this, I mean, it's still magical. You know, Lynn, I have seen things, and I'm sure you and Jim have too, where somebody goes into trance and they change. And I'll tell you right now, I don't take credit for it. I just look upwards and say thanks, because it's not me. I get to help people do this, but there are times I still get blown away when people change so profoundly. So this... Pardon?
That's something that comes up over and over again with most of our guests, that it's always amazing. We see, sometimes we see absolute miracles. Sometimes people change and so quickly and have this turning point, and we know that it's not us. We know that we're guiding them and they're going through this process, and yet it's, as often as we see it, it's still so amazing.
It's great to be part of it, isn't it?
It is.
Sure
It's
is.
very exciting. It never loses that.
When I
While
teach,
you're-
what's that, Jim? Sorry?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I teach classes, I tell people, I look at my students, and with a very serious face, which I can do quite well, I say, I'm a tool.
Well,
Okay.
by your definition, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So
Yeah.
would you give our listeners a technique that they could use in their lives, especially someone with diabetes?
Hypnosis is a person's ability to convince themselves of anything, and we can do this with our mind, our body, and our emotions. And oftentimes, mind and emotions will follow body. So one of the thing that is most important for any diabetic, be it type 1, type 2, gestational, or pre-diabetic, the most important thing, and this is going to be so obvious it's not, is stress reduction.
Mm-hmm.
At Duke University, this was some years ago, Dr. Richard Surwitt conducted an experiment with 108 type 2 diabetics. What he had them do was 3 times a week, 20 minutes each time, they listened to a relaxation tape, not hypnosis or anything, just something to relax. At the end of 3 months, their average blood sugar, known as your A1C, with these type 2 diabetics, their average blood sugar dropped just about as much as if they'd been taking a diabetes medication.
Wow.
Wow.
So, as a broad thing that a listener can do right now, stress reduction, and you can always find a way. Now, here is a way for somebody to do it. This will take about 3 minutes or so. Is that okay?
That's
Sure.
absolutely okay. Everybody will get a lot out of this, and we want them to have a technique they can leave
Right.
with and use.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
This is a very powerful technique. What I would like everybody to do is, when they're ready, is take a deep breath with your stomach and chest expanding. Inhale all the way, hold it at the top of the inhale. And I'm just going to pretend that people are doing this. As you gently exhale, here's what I want you to do inside your head, with your voice starting loud and getting low. 5. Exhaling. 4. Your voice is getting quieter inside. 3, 2, 1. Inside your mind, mentally whisper these words: I give myself permission to somehow, right now, let go of stress. Now, if we were to step through this whole thing, I would have you do this 6 times, but there's so much information that I want to share, and I know we have limited time. But let me share with your listeners why this technique, it's very obvious and it's not very obvious. You have to do it 6 or more times in a row. Here's why. When you take a deep, calming breath 6 or more times in a row, your body must release. When you take a deep breath 6 or more times in a row, your body must release calming chemicals. It's your parasympathetic nervous system that's being activated. When we stress out, our sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, is engaged. So what you're doing with this is you are now engaging the calming part of your nervous system. So when you take a deep breath and then you hold it at the top for 3 or 4 seconds, as you let it out, 5, 4, you're calming your inner voice. 3, slower, more calm. 2, 1. You say the word relax, which can mean you're giving yourself permission to let go of stress. We give ourselves permission to feel stress. Please give yourself permission to just let go of it, and your unconscious will take care of the details. This technique, it's so easy to do. If you're in a car, put it on the back of a business card, stick it on your dashboard. If you're in the bathroom, write it on the mirror with a grease pencil, the number 5. Just put the number 5. Do this throughout the day. I promise you, you will feel better.
That's fantastic. There are so many different ways to de-stress. I really like that. It's really obvious how you're engaging.
I do too, and I'm going to put 5 everywhere I look.
I had somebody, they allowed themselves to go into trance, and so when they see cars now with the number 5 on the license plate, they automatically do it.
Oh, we don't want them going into trance while they're driving, though. No. No, she was in trance in the office, and just said, okay, the number 5, I like that, and unconsciously hooked up the license plates because she spent so much time on the road. Yeah.
So, what a great way to remind yourself, you know. Oh, look, the number 5. 5, 4. And it worked beautiful.
Good for her.
That's great. Then you end up constantly reminding yourself all day long to relax, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
As a quick sideline, and I don't want to take too much time, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
A really good question. In the past, with type 1, imagine you're holding up one index finger pointing up into the air, and now stick it into your thigh. Type 1 means you need a shot of insulin. So you hold the one up, you put it in your thigh, it's taking a shot. Insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. Type 2, hold up your fingers like it's a peace sign and imagine that there is a cruller or a donut between your fingers and put it in your mouth. Type 2 diabetes is food-induced. It's most type 2 diabetics are fat. So it's non-insulin-dependent diabetes. What this means is if the person changes their diet and or gets some kind of physical activity, they can reduce or, in fact, eliminate the diabetes symptoms. I never say cure, but a lot of people can go without the symptoms.
Great. Thank you.
So that gives people great hope to be able to be well.
Oh, Lord, yes.
And you're the example.
Yeah, I'm not perfect, but, you know, I was told I'd be on insulin by 95, and then again in 98. And I was like, nope, I've just had some emotional upsets. I can do better than this. So, and I was seriously almost completely blind, and I still have 20/20 vision to this day without assistance.
And that's a great mantra that you just said. I can do better than this. That's a wonderful thing to say to yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was just like, okay, I slipped up. When I moved up here to Minneapolis, the reason I moved is because my marital future had suddenly become wide open in a very painful way. And,
we've had that experience. We can empathize with you.
And you know what I call those? Highly educational events.
Yes, they are.
And it really was. In the middle of searing pain, because in a 5-month period of time, I'd lost 2 people I dearly loved, and then my marriage future was suddenly wide open. I could marry whoever I want because my wife was very busy with someone else, and I moved, you know, and all of these other wonderful things happened. But I got so much out of it. I learned a lot about gratitude and forgiveness. Amazingly. So, you know, and that's what I tell people. You can, if you want, you can actually benefit from hard times. Even with diabetes, the way I've benefited from this, to somehow assuage the pain. Diabetes killed my mother. My dad has it. My brother had it. He's in remission, as it were. But, you know, it's like I want to do whatever I can for anybody. I know that at least one person listening to this, at least one person is going to change their life, if not more. You know, that's why I'm so passionate about this, because you can always benefit from a hard time.
Yes, yes. There's always growth. There's always growth, and there's always light at the other end of the tunnel.
Well, it's usually a train coming in my direction, but I figure I'll learn how to run really fast.
You were talking about insulin. Let me ask, is there any clinical evidence that hypnosis can help a diabetic on insulin? On that, you're type 2. What about type 1?
There is at least one case where a type 1 diabetic went off her medication. And in brief, she was in the hospital for a particular procedure. She was hypnotized in a 2-hour session. This is what's mind-blowing. It happened so quickly. Hypnotized in a 2-hour session. Events happened. Her blood sugars dropped to a normal level without insulin. She went through the medical procedure, was discharged. Her sugars never went above normal. Dr. David Cheek did a follow-up with her 11 months later. The only time, and it was only a couple of times that she used insulin, and those times were extremely emotional events.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, she was insulin-free. So, the mind-body connection, which I know we don't have time to go into, but it is it is intense and fascinating. So, yeah, there are stories of people going off insulin. Can this happen with every insulin-dependent diabetic? No. Is it possible to happen again? Yes.
Great. That's awesome.
You wrote that there's a virtually unknown but critical information new patients need to know in order to help protect their infant from getting type 1 diabetes. What is that information?
Jim, it's going to be a surprise, and I'm going to upset a lot of people with this. Back in 1984, the Journal of the American Medical Association published an article that stated that there was a definite link between infant ingestion of cow's milk and the onset of type 1 diabetes. And I'll give you the chain of events really quickly. By the way, there's a great website, notmilk.com. And, there's something called too much of a good thing. And too much milk does not do a body good, especially with it the way it is now. But in 1984, this article was published, and then later on the journal retracted it, probably because lobbyists threw a bunch of money at them. But here's the deal. Cow's milk, never mind that it's loaded with bovine growth hormone and all kinds of antibiotics and stuff, it is meant for a creature that is going to grow up to weigh, 1,200 pounds. So you give this to a 7 or 8 pound infant, its immune system hasn't even begun to get trained. And if it's not given mother's milk, it's definitely going to get mistrained. And this infant's body senses the incoming milk and says, it's not us. It's not part of our body. What happens is that an autoimmune response is set up inside the child's body, and for some reason, the beta cells that produce insulin, the beta cells in this infant are attacked and destroyed because of this. Does it happen every time? Obviously not. But is it likely? Sure. An autoimmune response because of a foreign agent of some sort in somebody's body, especially a child, an infant? Yeah. So the ingestion of cow's milk, not a good idea for infants, based on evidence I've looked at.
You gave us a technique a minute ago for de-stressing, and I'm wondering what other ways hypnosis can be used for diabetics.
There is another one that, and this is where, again, hypnotists excel, which is why they should be the treatment of choice. Hypnotists, by definition, according to the National Guild of Hypnotists, are stress management consultants and motivational coaches. One of the things that hypnosis excels at is helping people to sleep better. Better sleep is fundamental to controlling and at times even eliminating stress. And there's one book called Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, and Survival. And it was written a while ago. These guys have about 80 pages of very good references in there. And they state that type 2 diabetes is either directly or indirectly caused by poor sleep. So helping somebody to sleep better, it reduces their stress levels. When we stress out, make this connection very clear, please. When we stress out, our blood sugars go up because we are getting into the fight or flight response, which is where we need the extra energy. If a person sleeps better, they have more emotional power. They just do. They feel better, so they can say no to those foods that offend the body. A person will also be much less likely to stress out. So the cumulative effect of better sleep, I mean, think about it. It just feels great. It puts people in a better mood. Never mind that good, healthy sleep, without the use of drugs, good, healthy sleep allows the body to repair and rejuvenate. So, and again, this is just a hypnosis technique. Anybody listening, go get a sleep CD. Better sleep with hypnosis or something. I mean, or go see Jim or Lynn and get zapped so that you can go to sleep.
That's what we do. We zap them.
Yeah, big time. Oh, people ask me, they say, are you going to use that watch on me? And I say, no, I've got a taser, man. You never know.
Oh, wow.
I love your sense of humor.
Hey, for real, I was in London I was giving a 2-day workshop in London, and one of my featured tools that I use with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is a rubber chicken. I do. I use a rubber chicken to help my clients. I have a 73-year-old retired clinical psychologist. This person got over a phobia in one session because of Ed the chicken. Yeah, for real. Got to make it fun and different, that's for sure.
So far we talked about hypnosis working on people who have diabetes. What about people who don't have diabetes? Can hypnosis essentially prevent diabetes?
Yes, it can. And to try and make what could be an extremely long answer somewhat shorter, the number one cause of diabetes is weight, excess weight. And as you know, roughly 60% or more of America is overweight or obese, and our youth are heading that way very quickly too. So if somebody is not yet diabetic, if they're overweight, they can see their local hypnotist to get rid of the weight. And I don't say lose the weight. You don't want to lose something because that hurts. You want to get rid of it. So first of all, weight reduction, absolutely essential. Another thing that causes a person's body to stress, notice I'm following a familiar theme here, is anxiety and depression. So if this is treated before it manifests as an actual physical condition, and God, I wish we had time to talk about other stuff, but if it manifests, this anxiety or depression, it will eventually manifest and cause diabetes. It can. In fact, diabetics are twice as likely to be depressed. So then you go, well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And depression usually is first because it's emotional, and then it has an effect on the body. So helping somebody to reduce anxiety, to reduce sadness. Do you know there was a Swedish study done in 97, 98. 17,000 kids were followed for 2 years. And one thing was noted, that the children who suffered extreme trauma, divorce, death, or anything similar, they had twice as much autoimmune activity that was likely to lead to diabetes. They had twice as much as the, shall we say, normal healthy population. So there are so many ways that hypnosis can help prevent diabetes. Because if you get a kid that's been through a severe trauma, get them hypnotized so that they can deal with it better, so they can develop resiliency. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't know. I get off on these rants. I'm like, and this, and this, and this. It's like, and then I go, my tongue has gotten away from me once again.
You're kind of talking to the choir.
Well, to us, yeah, but the listeners out there, they're really learning from this.
That's right.
And I think there's going to be more than just that one person that benefits from
sure.
this. So if hypnosis is such a great tool for diabetes, whether you have it or not, and going by your universal definition of hypnosis, does that mean that a person with diabetes can just walk into any hypnotist's office and expect good treatment for their diabetes?
Oh, well, not so much. There's a couple of things. When I teach my students, I tell them, if you are dealing with a diagnosed medical condition, you have to get a doctor's referral. They're supervising physician's referral. It's just because that way the doctor's in the loop. And trust me, if the hypnotist has been trained to help a diabetic, your medication levels will change. Your blood sugar levels will drop. And so, and the problem is somebody years ago put out a really well-meaning script called Turning On the Insulin Valve. And I almost beat my head into a pipe when I saw that, because it's so not right. You see, what people don't know, you guys, is that a lot of type 2 diabetics, for many years, they have too much insulin. So the whole, I've written an article on this, where hyperinsulinemia, I believe, is actually an undiagnosed epidemic.
Wow.
Yeah. So, can somebody just walk into any hypnotist's office and get help? Yes, but if the hypnotist is not trained to help specifically with diabetes, stress reduction can be done, and it can be effective. And remember, Dr. Sherwood proved that stress reduction alone can lower your medication needs. It will lower your blood sugars. So for any hypnotist listening, you have to know that. Even listening to just a regular CD can lower your blood sugars. Mm-hmm. So, yes, by all means, go see a local qualified hypnotist. But if they haven't trained specifically, or if they don't know about diabetes, then it is up to you, the listener, to keep a sharp eye on your blood sugar levels.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they have to, because they will change. There's no doubt about it.
And if they do their homework in most areas, I think they're going to find somebody who had some training and ability to deal with it.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, so far, my 2-day workshop... I
don't know if you agree. You know more about it than I do. Do you think there's a lot of people out there, or do you think there's a kind of a void in this?
Oh, there's a void. I'm the only one who... I have a diabetes motivational coach certification workshop, and half of it is concerned with teaching the hypnotist about diabetes. So, on the one hand, it would be advisable to see somebody who knows something about diabetes. On the other hand, if you have no other options, by all means, get stress reduction, but watch your blood sugars. And there's a good chance that some of the hypnotists out there are diabetic, or they know about diabetes anyway. And I believe that most of the hypnotists out there are genuinely deep-caring, competent people. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But this is where, I wrote another article where people have got to start taking charge of their health. Do not expect someone else to care, per se, but get in control of it. And so if you're a diabetic listening or pre-diabetic, keep an eye on your sugars. Go find a hypnotist. That is the most important thing, because they can help you.
Yeah, you do need to step up and take control.
Oh, it's fundamental. Yeah.
We have about 2 minutes before the break. And before we break, and when we come back, it'll be a very short segment. So why don't you take a moment to let people know how they can reach you? Tell us about your website, any workshops or products, or anything that I know you've written so many books. Tell us what you'd like them to know and how they can reach you.
Oh, well, that's really nice. Thank you. Devin, D-E-V-I-N, Hastings. You can Google it. You'll find about 40 pages of references on me. You can go to devinhastings.com. That's my public speaker website. You could go to mindbodyhypnosis.com. That is my main website. There is a ton of articles on there. Please read them. They can help you. And, that's why I put the information out there. So, and feel free to get in touch with any questions you may have. I will do my best to help you succeed. I've helped people across the world who actually, they've listened in on shows like this and they've called me. And I don't necessarily sell them anything, nor am I particularly bothered. I just know that if I can help somebody and I'm not screaming busy, I will do it. When diabetes was initially discovered, as it were, it was known as the wasting disease, because it didn't matter how much a person ate, they died from malnutrition. So it's a great way to get skinny. It's a terrible way to get skinny. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's horribly effective, but it's going to take your eyesight, it'll take your kidneys, it'll take pieces of your body. But this is how some people choose to stay thin. It's called diabulimia, and it's very dangerous.
Oh, it's amazing what lengths we'll go to. We have so many messages about being thin, and we're bombarded with that, and it's amazing how far people will go. I mean, the woman doing that knows that it's going to kill her.
Yep, but apparently, it's better to die thin than not. So.
There was something I read not too long ago, and I can't be as specific as you are about studies because it was just something in passing that I noticed. And the point of the article and the study was how much are you willing to shorten your life to be thin? And the answer was pretty much 4, 5, 6 years.
Good grief.
I know it. This primarily women, but they don't think in those terms. No woman is going to tell you, well, yeah, I don't mind dying 5 or 6 years earlier if I can be thin. But if you ask them a lot of questions and do take the approach that they did in this survey, the answer becomes clear. There's nothing more important to them than being thin. And
outstanding.
All I can say to those people is get yourself to a hypnotist right away and reframe your thinking about your attitude, your relationship toward food, toward your body, your self-image. It's not worth it.
No, it definitely isn't. Of course, makes you wonder how much sooner will somebody die if they're overweight. But, a lot of people think they're overweight when they aren't. I mean, talk about body dysmorphic disorder. People walk into the office and they say, oh, I was fat as a kid. And I'm like, bring me photographs. And they look at it, and it's almost like you have to wave your hand over their eyes, and their vision clears, and they go, oh, my God, I was thin.
I know it. I have a client who was a beauty queen and made it all the way to the Miss Universe pageant. And she has a body image problem. And she's still beautiful. It's amazing how we twist things around in our minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is her self-worth worth?
We have probably 2 minutes left before we have to say goodbye to you, Devin, and there's so many things we would want to talk about. So why don't we leave it to you to tell us what's most important that we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about?
What is most important? I'll share a couple of things. Number one, my mission for every person whose life I have the honor to touch is very simple. Somehow, in some way, I'm helping you today to become a better friend to yourself in a healthy, wonderful way. Improving one's relationship to oneself can cause a cascade of wonderful healing effects. With that said, let me touch on something else. It's a cause of diabetes that is right under our noses to the point where we don't see it. Medications. And I'm not anti-medication. I'm not saying that. I am against inappropriate prescription, but medications can be life-saving. However, there's a lot of medications that are used to treat mood disorders, seizures, migraines, and high blood pressure. These things can cause people to gain weight, sometimes as much as 10 pounds a month. Then you've got steroids, hormone replacement therapy, and even oral contraceptives can also get people to become heavier. So that weight gain can lead to diabetes eventually. Now, there are other drugs that can actually cause diabetes. So when you talk to your doctor, or if you're taking a drug, research it and make sure that it is not associated with the onset of diabetes. If it is, talk to your doctor and see if you can find a better medication to be on, or perhaps a better way to get off the medication. So I definitely wanted to cover that as well. And that probably uses up my time.
Well, can you tell us the drug you refer to, or is that something you want to avoid?
Can I tell you the what?
The drug that causes diabetes.
Are there any particular drugs to worry about, or?
I am trying to think. There was one for schizophrenia, and its name is escaping me, but the people taking it were getting diabetic at a high rate. There's a lot of diabetic, what do they call it, diabetic. Anyway, I can't pronounce the word. There are a lot of drugs that can cause insulin resistance, which can lead to diabetes as well. And then there are some drugs that just can cause the body to not produce as much insulin. I don't have that list near me. But beta blockers, you know, all variety of them, thiazide diuretics, corticosteroids, and there's atypical antipsychotics. And a lot of them carry a black box warning, which means it really should be taken off the shelf. Zyprexa, there it is. Oh, and it's sold as Abilify. And apparently a lot of people taking Abilify would develop diabetes. And then immunosuppressives, of course, you know, they can have unforeseen side effects on the body. So there's a lot of medications out there. The best thing to do is to read the list you get with your drug.
Okay.
Oh, that's good advice. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Been a lot of fun having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Thank you. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful day.